Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar for DepEd Order number 14, series of 2020, Guidelines on the Required Health Standards in Basic Education, Offices, and Schools. Just a few reminders. First, listen actively. Second, take notes if necessary, but you can listen to the recorded video after the live feed. Third, have a list of inputs or questions ready and enter in the comments section. Fourth, MOVs are highly encouraged. And lastly, post-tests will be posted after the session. I present to you the Cluster 7 School Health and Nutrition Unit. For our team leader, we have Maria Evelyn V. Reliquias, DMD. For the nurses, we have for Kawayan 1, Ilka B. Kipko, and yours truly, Marian Grace Pluten. Kawayan 2, Nylendale T. Elgario, and Christine Joy G. Gayudin. Hinubaan, Harlin Jimmy Harris, and DG Apolinario. To start our webinar proper, let us bow down our heads as we lead you in prayer.
Good morning, everyone! Again, my name is Shane Marie Tiaxon, one of your SHNU nurses. And today, I will be giving you a situational report on COVID-19 in Negros Occidental as of July 2020. I will also be giving you a short recap on the facts about COVID-19 and its mode of transmission. Everyone, please take note that COVID-19 is real and it is already here in our province. And our goal is to control the increasing number of cases. To start with, how are you? How is everyone? How is your mental health? How has the new normal changed your life so far? Are you adhering to the social distancing? Is everyone 1 meter away from each other? Are you wearing your mask? Have you washed your hands today? Well, this is the reality of a pandemic. Pandemic, by definition, means occurring over a wide geographic area and affecting an exceptionally high proportion of the population. To give you a clearer view of what pandemic means, here is an infographic of how COVID-19 spread from one China to the entire world. Now, 7 months later, we already have over 14 million cases, affecting 213 countries. In Western Visayas, as of July 18, 2020, we already have 737 cases detected, under which in Negros Occidental are 254 cases. So our Department of Health is updating their website every day for the updated status of COVID-19 cases. Please take note on the left pie chart is the 89% of asymptomatic contacts, meaning These people are walking and talking without experiencing any kinds of symptoms, but are actually COVID positive. 7% of which experience influenza-like illnesses or something like the flu, and 4% experience severe acute respiratory infection requiring hospitalization and oxygenation. On the right side is the status of confirmed COVID-19 cases. 51% have already recovered. 42% are currently still in quarantine. 5% are admitted, and 2% has unfortunately died of COVID-19. Updating to July 17, 2020, if you open the DOH CD6 COVID-19 dashboard, they will be able to show you a specific breakdown of COVID-19 per city or municipality within Western Visayas. Shown in the map in front of you, the darkest shade shows the most number of COVID-19 cases, which is Calatrava. Next to it is Bago City, Escalante City, and Sarcarla City. And then, next to it is Himamaylan City. So it clearly shows that all municipalities within Negros Occidental is already affected by COVID-19. The most affected out of these 254 cases in Negros Occidental are males aged 20 to 39 years old. It is clear to see how effective the restrictions on senior citizens and children are, all having less than 10 cases under the said age group. On the other hand, out of those 254 confirmed cases, 228 are repatriates or locally stranded individuals, meaning more cases are coming from individuals who have traveled from places with local transmission. Showing you here the latest executive order signed by our Governor Lacson, extending the modified general community quarantine to July 31. The Department of Education under the Division of Negros Occidental is actually monitoring the learners, teaching, and non-teaching personnel who are considered PUMs, close contacts, suspects, probable, and confirmed cases. We are currently monitoring 1 probable and 2 close contact cases within our division. Everyone is asked to report any cases considered by the DOH under PUM, close contact, suspect, probable, and confirmed. Please immediately inform your district nurse in charge if you are considered one of these cases, and you will be asked to accomplish a form through Google Forms. Now let's answer the whys. Why are we being placed on quarantine or lockdown? Why are we being asked to observe physical distancing? Why should we change our way of lives because of this? Last July 13, 2020, the World Health Organization Director General, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, said this: "There will be no going back to normal for the foreseeable future, but there is a roadmap to a situation where we can control the disease and get on with our lives. Thus, the new normal." So COVID-19, again, is a virus. It is new, and it was discovered last December 2019 in Wuhan, China. It looks like this under the microscope. It's called corona because when you first see it in the microscope, it looks like a crown. So what do viruses do in our bodies? Without a host, viruses are just inert packet of chemicals. But once it comes inside our body, it hijacks the normal living cells. They use these cells to replicate and multiply, eventually destroying the host cell, which makes us sick. Supposedly, viruses are just self-limiting, meaning, as it runs its course, the body is supposed to just heal on its own. In 14 to 21 days, as per virology, the virus is supposedly just gone. But viruses have genes. They reproduce and they evolve through natural selection. Do you remember this? 14 days to save lives, 14 days to save the community, 14 days to save the world, and stay at home. Now allow me to speak in our dialect. So ano ning stay home? Ano ning 14 days? Nga gina-quarantine ka gina-lockdown. Gina-quarantine ka gina-lockdown. Kay kung tani, ang incubation period lang ginhambal ko sa slide before this. Tani, ang virus madula lang gid sa aton lawas after 14 to 21 days kung wala ta nang laton. Ang wala gina siya kasimple. Kung ginamasakit ka, hindi ka magwa for 14 days. Madula lang na tani ang virus. Especially kung wala ka nagka-pute or wala ka ng hatsi or wala ka ng laton sang iban. Pero, mayroon ata silang asymptomatic na ginatawag. Hindi naman na sila mabasol. So, inano na sila. So, nalatnan sila. For example, ako, wala ko yung mga nabatsyag. Pero nalatnan ko, balik kami LSI, ito yung sa piyak nga dalan nga nalabyan ko sang piyak nga sa san auto nga adlaw. Wala ko kabalo nga ging kapyan niya, ging kaptan ko man gali. Di nagkadto ko sa nagkadto ko sa obra pagkasunod nga adlaw. Positive na ko gali sa COVID-19. Mubay na ang rason ko nga grabe mag-spread ang COVID. Kaya tungod, may mga symptomatics, ang mga symptomatics, wala man kabalo nga positive na sila. So please, if anyone experiences any kinds of symptom, and especially kung may known ka nga positive nga lapit sa inyo, be very, very careful. If you feel anything, any kind of signs and symptoms of COVID-19, it's best to be safe and stay home. Now, let's talk about flattening the curve. I'm sure everyone has heard about this, but does everyone really understand? Look at the first curve. The number of patients will increase if we do not take any measures. How about the second curve? With measures taken to slow down the rate of infection, such as social distancing and wearing face masks, there will be a lessening number of COVID-19 patients. But what is very important in this picture is the broken dots in the middle. It says capacity of healthcare system. What we are trying to do is to have a healthcare system that is capable of taking care of our patient. Pila lang ayhan kabilog ang ospital nga kaya mag-take care sang COVID positive nga pasyente. Pila kabilo ang doctors kag pila ang nurses. Kung magdinapunda mo ta cases, mapuno ang ospital. And it could come to a point, and it has already happened, nga ang aton healthcare workers malatnan man sang COVID positive. What will happen to them and what will happen to their patients? So, mas delikado kung amo na ang matabo. We should take measures and we should be very, very adherent to all that is recommended to us. Now, let's talk about diagnosing COVID-19. I'm sure everyone has heard about swabbing, and everyone must understand that when we say swabbing, it is RT-PCR. It means reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction. And this is the gold standard for diagnosing COVID-19. It is ideal because it is both specific and sensitive, which means that people who test positive truly have the disease, and none of the people carrying the virus slips through the test as false negative. It could be possible for you to test false negative in RT-PCR, but it is not possible for you to test false positive. So how is this taken? It is taken through nasopharyngeal swabbing. From your nose, may laba-laba na siya nga swab nga ipasulod sa imong ilong, kag i-culture na siya ang nakuha nila nga swab. They will be looking for a genetic code specific of COVID-19, and if it amplifies through culture, it means that you truly have COVID-19. On the other hand, there is another test that we do. There is rapid test. Ang rapid test, this is done through serum or your blood test. This measures the antibodies that have formed in your body. This is good, but this is not accurate. We could have both false positive and false negative. So either way, maskin mag-rapid test ka pa, kinanglan mo gyapon mag-RT-PCR to confirm if you truly have COVID-19. It is important to note that there is still no cure for the COVID-19 virus. In the meantime, scientists are working hard to develop effective treatments. There may be promising treatments that are being published right now, but in actuality, it takes years for a cure to be developed. Still, the safest way to attain immunity is vaccination, and there is still no vaccine. Let us hope and pray that a vaccine is developed within the year, or at least early next year. So as long as the virus is here, and now that it is actually here in Negros Occidental, I want you to answer this question to yourselves. Are you prepared of the possibility that you might get infected? Are you prepared of the possibility that you might infect others? The only thing that we could recommend, all medical professionals recommend, is to adapt to the new normal. Wash your hands frequently for at least 20 seconds with soap and water. Stay at home and limit contact with others. Routinely clean frequently touched spaces in your home or in your office. Seek medical help if you're suffering from a fever, cough, or difficulty of breathing. Don'ts. Don't go to crowded areas. Don't touch your face. Don't be in close contact with others. Don't ignore your symptoms. Don't leave your home, especially if you're sick. I found this passage in the internet, and I think it's applicable to everyone. This is for you. First of all, I wear a mask in public, not for me, but for you. I want you to know that I am educated enough to know that I could be asymptomatic and still give you the virus. No, I do not live in fear of the virus. I just want to be part of the solution and not the problem. I don't feel like the government is controlling me. I feel like I am being a contributing adult to the society. The world does not revolve around me. It's not about me and my comfort. If all could live with other people's consideration in mind, this world would be a much better place. Wearing a mask doesn't make me feel weak, scared, stupid, or even controlled. It makes me considerate. Now, thank you everyone, and if you have any questions, please leave it in the comment below. I hope you learned something from me, and the next speaker will be Dr. Villaresa for the DepEd Order number 14, Series 2020. Thank you everyone.
Good morning. I'm here to report about the DepEd Order number 14, series of 2020, the guidelines on the health standards in basic education offices in school. So we will again go back to the basic facts about COVID-19, since this debit order is based upon facts. So all the stipulations in this debit order is based upon information that the central office has received. So basic facts on COVID-19, Ma'am Shane has already reported it, but we cannot have too much information. We have to reiterate it again and again and know it by heart so that we can explain it thoroughly to all teachers and teaching personnel and learners. So basic facts about COVID-19. This was first identified as December 2019, isolated in Wuhan, Hubei Province, People's Republic of China, specifically in the Huanan Seafood Wholesale Market. Novel was then known as the novel coronavirus, or nCoV. Novel means new. It was not detected or isolated in human beings before, and therefore we have no immunity over this virus. What does this entail? If you are exposed to this virus, you will get sick. You will become infected, and you will spread this virus he will carry this virus and will spread it to the community. So the virus is spread through respiratory droplets. This is very important. You have to remember that this is respiratory droplets. These respiratory droplets are released when a person coughs, sneezes, spits, or speaks. Now, this is a graphical representation of the droplet in comparison with airborne. There are reports that COVID-19 is airborne, but primarily it was first reported as a droplet infection. The difference between a droplet infection is that droplets are large aerosol particles greater than 0.5 microns. Therefore, they are heavier. When a person coughs and sneezes, theoretically the distance is just 3 feet or 1 or 2 meters. What does this entail? When you wear a mask, the droplets will be stopped by your mask. Even if it is just a cloth mask, it will stop the droplets from spreading further. As compared to airborne particles, which are smaller, lesser than 0.5 microns, they are going to be, therefore they are lighter. They will only have they have a maximum distance of 6 feet. So we are thankful, we're still thankful that COVID-19 is primarily a droplet infection. So the viral particles are suspended within a liquid, within a liquid material. So therefore it is here. So theoretically, again, when exposed to heat, this droplet dries out. Theoretically, it will kill the virus. So when this uh, these liquid droplets will fall when a person coughs or sneezes, usually they cover their hands. So the hands are a very important medium in transporting the virus. So when you touch frequently held objects such as doorknobs, door handles, stairway handles, escalators, and keyboards, and others, you leave these respiratory droplets and the virus on these frequently touched surfaces. So when a non-infected individual touches the said items and brings them to his or her mouth, nose, and eyes, it will the person will get infected. So what are the signs and symptoms of COVID? So we have fever, cough, nasal catarrh, throat pain, diarrhea. Most of it are respiratory since the transmission is respiratory. But another common feature of COVID is the diarrhea, since it is an important step in the viral replication. But most patients are asymptomatic. You have to remember that a person who is asymptomatic does not manifest the symptoms, but is a carrier of the virus. And when these asymptomatic persons go out, they will spread the virus to the community. Okay. What makes coronavirus very dangerous? And this DepEd order is based upon this policy that we are to protect the vulnerable members of our population, especially the workforce and the learners of DepEd. It is the China Center for Disease Control has concluded that those aged 60 and above are most at risk. Okay, we have to note that this data comes from first wave of infections in Wuhan, China, where lung health is poor and smoking rates are very high. So again, smoking is a factor in the spread of the virus. That's why also in this DepEd order, we have specific measures to eliminate smoking in DepEd offices and schools. So DepEd is lucky. Okay, a percentage of our school-aged children, 0 to 9 years old, early school age and preschool, 0% of those infected suffered mortality. Also in also in uh, school age children from 10 to 19 years old, 1 in 500 persons infected would suffer mortality, or a 0.2%. The next age group is 20 to 29. This is where our usually newly hired teachers, teacher one, a large percentage of the workforce of DepEd, 1 in 500, also the same death rate, 0.02%, a 0.2%. Also in the 30 to 39 age group, 1 in 500 of those infected will die, so 0.2%. So our most productive age group, the 20 to 39 years old, they have almost the same death rate. So in a sense, the workforce of DepEd is relatively safe, the main workforce. But as we go older, 40 to 49 age group, 1 in 250 of those infected will die. And when we go up to the 50 to 59 years old, this represents the bulk of our decision makers. Most of them are principals, most of them are PSDSS, maybe ASDS, SDS, the EPS, those in the 50 to 59 years old age group. 1 in 76 of those infected will suffer mortality, and the death rate is 1.3%. So this represents the most valuable age group because these are the decision makers. If they are going to be hospitalized, if they will be in ICU, the division office would the division offices or the schools would be left hanging. Also, we should not forget that as we age 60 to 69 years old, 70, the rate of those the death rate or the fatality rate, the fatality rate also increases. So 60 to 69 years old, those who are retiring, near retiring, or retirable age, or retired, 1 in 27 of those infected will suffer mortality. Okay, that is the importance of the age group and the mortality rate. And also those with existing medical conditions such as hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, those personnel in the workforce with cardiovascular diseases, about 10.5% of those with hypertension will suffer mortality. Those with diabetes, 7.3% of those who have diabetes and are infected with COVID will suffer mortality, as well as chronic respiratory diseases such as asthma, allergic rhinitis, those with high blood pressure, those with cancer, as compared to the percentage of the population with no existing conditions, only 0.9% of them will suffer mortality. Okay, this next slide is an infographic on how dangerous this COVID-19, how contagious and deadly is it. When you compare COVID-19 to other diseases, like in the x-axis, we have the transmission rate. It is the rate at which a sick person infects a non-sick person. So we have diseases that have higher transmission rates. So we have measles, norovirus, and chickenpox. So a sick person may infect 8 to 9 to 10 persons with measles and chicken if they have measles and chickenpox. As compared to seasonal flu, rotavirus, which causes diarrhea, or swine flu, so they belong to the point. A sick person can infect only one or two persons, and the Y-axis is the fatality rate, the percentage of persons who die when they get the coronavirus. Other diseases like bird flu belong to the same family of coronaviruses, the MERS or the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome and the Ebola. They have a higher mortality rate. So what does this entail? If the higher fatality rate of the bird flu, the Ebola, and the SARS, the person dies before they can effectively transmit, before they can effectively infect the population. So, what is dangerous about the COVID 19 is that it has a long incubation period and a transmission rate of 1.5 to 3.5 and a case fatality rate of zero point 0.7 to 3.4%. But what is important to note is that COVID 19, since it has a long incubation period and there are a lot of patients who are asymptomatic and they keep about going their normal lives, not minding at all, not even wearing face masks, they keep spreading the virus to the community. That's why it is considered to be a pandemic that is very dangerous. It spreads long, it spreads fairly easily. That's why it's difficult to contain. But on a good note, this is one of the infographics that is very important to share. This is quite old, it is several months, but the statistics have not changed. So approximately 80% of those who experience coronavirus illnesses suffer only mild illness or even are asymptomatic. But certain percentage of the population, 14%, experience severe disease, and 5% of those infected will fall critically ill. This is where the decision of the DOH and the IATF rests that about the capacity of our healthcare system to take care of those who are critically ill. We have to remember that ICU beds are limited, ventilators are limited, nurses and doctors who are intensivists or trained intensivists are also limited. You cannot just pick any nurse or any physician and place them in the ICU and expect them to function uh, immediately. So it takes years of training. And as what Ma'am Shane mentioned, most of these intensivists, they keep on having repeated infections of the virus and they become critically ill themselves. So primarily for a public health, in a public health standpoint, we have to maintain measures to keep the virus from spreading because it will overwhelm our healthcare capacity. That's why the DOH, IATF, and LGUs uh, are are the ones who are making the decision to whether or not it is already safe for us to conduct face-to-face classes, face-to-face transmissions, because it is dependent on several factors, like the number of quarantine facilities available for the community, number of treatment facilities, the testing capacity of our country, the local COVID situation, the number of local cases, local transmissions, the doubling time of the cases, acceleration of cases, or deceleration of cases. So we have to remember that although we have DepEd Order number 14, we have to interpret it as such that if we are only allowed, if and when face-to-face classes are already allowed, we are going to be dependent upon the decision of the IATF, the DOH, and the LGU. For the introduction, for the basic facts on COVID-19, we will now go to the DepEd required health standards. This was a lecture by my boss in the central office, Dr. Maria Corazon Bunlao. This was relayed to me by our regional medical officer, Dr. Melcher Kim Kwan, and I'm basing my lecture today on their slides. Okay? DepEd required health standards shall be adopted by the DepEd Central Office, Regional Office, SDOs, and all public and private elementary and secondary schools or community learning centers. It is primarily based on DOHAO 2020-0015 or the guidelines on the risk-based public health standards of COVID-19 mitigation. So that is the legal basis for our required health standards. Why mitigation? Okay, there's no cure for COVID. There's no vaccine. There's no specific cure. What we have is supportive management. Those who get sick with COVID, basically, your body heals itself, but you are being supported through fluid resuscitation or ventilatory support. But that is not specific to eliminate the virus from your body. So in the absence of a specific treatment or vaccine, non-pharmaceutical interventions or NPIs form the backbone of the response to the COVID-19 outbreak. NPIs are public health strategies meant to mitigate. So the definition of mitigate is to become milder, lessen in severity, and suppress transmission of infectious disease. Okay? Limit, mitigate only, no specific treatment. That is how dangerous the situation is because you don't know what's going to happen. Okay? So we have required minimum health standards and other measures may be instituted as guided by the DOHAO 2020-0015. And the premise is that there is shared accountability among all government agencies and evidence-based decision-making by the LGUs and the IATF, also balanced by socio-economic equity and rights-based approach. So there are vulnerable groups. We have to realize that the decisions that we make, especially when we tell our employers or learners to report to school or we tell our we tell our employees to report for work, we have to understand that we are placing them at risk. Hindi na siya patawhay, delikado, subong. I have to say that in the dialect because it seems that some individuals interpret that just because there's a DepEd order, we are already allowed. We are not. It is still, we have to put in mind that it is still very dangerous, especially for those with pre-existing medical conditions, especially those who are pregnant. So the mere act of going out of your house places you at risk. So we have to place in mind the rights based, the individual rights of the employee and of the learners whenever we make decisions. And we have the framework is based on four COVID-19 mitigation activities. And the mitigation activities is increase physical and mental resilience, reduce transmission, reduce contact, and reduce duration of infection, which leads to the formulation of specific measures or interventions for schools and offices tailored for the Department of Education. So, in the DepEd order, we have four enclosures. The fourth enclosure is the physical arrangement of tables and chairs and physical arrangement of schools and offices. But we have basically two enclosures, one for schools and one for offices. The main difference, it was almost the same format, but the main difference is the school clinic and the health services. Well, it is a known fact that some schools do not have school clinics. It is not a priority in the budgeting. Some school heads would put up projects for fence, for walls, or for repairs of classrooms and buildings. But the school clinic, sadly, over the years, has been neglected. That is the sad reality. Until this pandemic occurred and we are all ordered to refurbish our school clinics and provide and provide basic health services. In order to provide basic health services, we have to purchase medicines, we have to purchase dressing materials, we have to stock up our clinics with surgical face masks, personal protective equipment, and other materials that are essential to maintain a healthy environment for our learners, teaching, and non-teaching personnel. So that is the main reason. We have to establish school clinics and stock up on supplies. Also, we have support mechanisms, physical and mental resilience, and administrative support. Administrative support, that is where the budgeting comes in. We have to budget. We have to get budget of for the purchase of medicines. Also, the fourth is screening of returning personnel and learners and the testing protocol. There are 45 measures stated in the DepEd order. We have the general health and safety protocols. Measure number one, respiratory etiquette. Practice physical distancing at least 1 meter apart at all times. What is the rationale? When someone coughs, sneezes, or speaks, they spray small liquid droplets from their nose or mouth, which may contain the virus. If you are too close, you can breathe in the droplets, including the COVID-19 virus, and you will get the disease. Measure number two, frequently clean hands by using alcohol-based hand rub or disinfectants or by proper hand washing with soap and water. So the rationale for this, washing your hands with soap and water or using alcohol-based hand rub kills viruses that may be in your hands. For schools, a specific period allotted for learners for regular and thorough hand washing with soap and water. Measure number three, when sneezing, coughing, proper distance must be maintained. Use tissue or inner portion of your elbow to cover nose and mouth. Do not cover your mouth with your hand. What is again the rationale for this? Droplet spreads virus. By following good respiratory hygiene, you protect the people around you from viruses such as cold, flu, and COVID-19. I would like to add that we have to use face masks. Mandatory use of face masks must be enforced. Okay, measure number four, observe proper use of face masks at all times. Both nose and mouth must be covered. So what is recommended is surgical face masks for symptomatic individuals and healthcare providers. But for the general population, cloth washable face masks, earlobe masks, indigenous, reusable do-it-yourself masks, face shields, even handkerchiefs, or other such protective equipment or any combination thereof for those with no symptoms. For those with no symptoms may be used. Again, the rationale for this, droplets spread the virus, wear a mask to avoid infecting others. Measure number five, practice proper disposal of tissue and masks after use. What is the rationale? Again, droplets spread the virus. By following good respiratory hygiene, you protect the people around you from viruses. Measure number six, provide and reiterate relevant information on respiratory etiquette, other protective measures that shall be observed in school or the workplace, or may be applicable elsewhere, so even at home. So we have to give an orientation on the first day of reporting to school, use available platforms prior to reporting to work or school through teleconference for the online platforms such as this that we're having right now for the workplace. Measure number seven, ensure access to the following: cloth, washable face mask, earlobe mask, indigenous reusable do-it-yourself mask, face shields, handkerchiefs, or other protective equipment, or any combination thereof, which can effectively lessen the transmission of COVID-19 for both learners and personnel. And for schools, there should be provision of one toothbrush and one toothpaste from kinder to grade 6 learners. Also, one bar of soap for kinder to grade 6 learners. Measure number eight, ensure availability of hand soaps, hand sanitizers, alcohol-based solutions, other disinfectants in restrooms, entrances by doing routine monitoring and replenishment if needed. Measure number 9, ensure routine cleaning and disinfection of frequently touched surfaces such as tables, doorknobs, school items, workstation using a bleach solution at least twice a day. The formulation for this bleach solution is in the DepEd Negros Occidental Workplace Safety Protocols Manual that we published. For schools, it should be emphasized that before the start of scheduled physical classes, we should do a thorough disinfection of this whole school and daily disinfection once in the morning and once in the afternoon. And we have to do more intensive cleaning and disinfection on weekends. Ensure also routine cleaning and replacement of disinfectant solutions in foot baths. Measure number 10, subject everyone to temperature checks using a thermal scanner prior to entering the school or the office. Those who will have a reading of 37.5 degrees Celsius or above shall be provided with a surgical face mask and sent to a private screening area. You have to take note that this private screening area is not the clinic. It is an area that shall be set up near the entrance of the school or the office where the concerned personnel or visitor can be examined, given appropriate management, intervention, and referral. So this private screening area must also be stocked up with basic medicines for appropriate management. It should be manned by the school clinic teacher with appropriate personal protective equipment. Okay? Entrance to the school of visitors and other stakeholders shall be discouraged. Okay? So preference to non-face-to-face communications shall be encouraged. Measure number 11. Teachers shall conduct daily rapid health assessment in the classroom. All personnel shall report to their immediate supervisors if they're experiencing flu-like symptoms. Those who will show symptoms shall be given a surgical face mask and further assessed and managed in the clinic. So who will manage? For the schools, it is the school clinic teacher. For the division office, it is the nurse on duty. Measure number 12, implement adjustments in schedule, assignment, and activities to allow for physical distancing in the classroom or in the office premises. Measure number 13, restrict conduct of physical or face-to-face large gatherings and activities that will require close contact or where physical distancing may not be possible. For schools, this could be activities like assemblies, flag ceremonies. For division offices, it could be seminars. So seminars should be online, or it will be a long time again before what we usually do before will be practiced again. So we have to restrict these large gatherings and activities. Measure number 14, provide and maximize use of online platforms which do not require physical interactions or congregations for the performance of tasks. Limit travel only to the most critical or essential office functions. So, sorry, no traveling. You cannot go to the places that we usually go to. You have to limit travel. Measure number 16, devise and implement alternative means of recording and monitoring attendance. Measure number 17, set a flexible dining policy. Okay. Studies have shown that most spread of COVID-19 among physicians and healthcare workers are through when they congregate for coffee breaks, or when they congregate for snacks, or where they congregate for lunch. So we have to set up flexible dining policy. We have to follow measures and implement strict social distancing. So basically, we do not congregate, we do not eat together. So we have to limit, we have to set staggered schedules for lunch. What we usually do is we ask our friend or our coworker to have lunch with us. So it's much better that you eat by yourself or bring packed lunch from home to avoid going out and having your meals outside, which could greatly increase your chances of contracting the virus. Measure number 18. Ensure the operationalization of the preventive alert systems in schools past the COVID-19 as ordered by the DepEd Memorandum Number 15 Series 2020. I think this will be discussed in detail later. Strengthen the implementation of the DTFC memo number 25, minimum standards on social distancing. And the schools and division officers shall develop contingency and response for COVID-19. Measure number 21. Strengthen the implementation of DO number 10 series of 2016, the policy and guidelines on the comprehensive WINS program or the water sanitation hygiene in schools. Measure number 22. Strictly enforce DO 13 series 2017, policy and guidelines on healthy food and beverage choices in schools and DepEd offices. So we have to provide IEC materials, healthy school on healthy food and beverage choices. Also infographics like uh, cycle menus for cycle menus and the pinggang Pinoy. Measure number 23. Strictly enforce the ban on smoking. Okay, as mentioned in the previous slides, there is a direct correlation between the risk for contracting COVID and smoking. So we have to strictly enforce the ban on smoking and vaping, as mentioned in DO 48 series of 2016 and Division DepEd Memorandum number 111 series of 2019. And we have to provide tobacco intervention. Also, the DOH has provided DepEd with a quick line. It's on Facebook, facebook.com/DOH Quickline Official. Communicate with FGUs for tobacco control ordinances or enforcement of existing laws. Measure number 24. Ensure these are the physical arrangements. We have to ensure proper ventilation. Open windows should be preferred over air conditioning. For offices, install temporary barriers between cubicles and tables. For classroom, you have to adhere to the prescribed layout. Measure number 25, establish and maintain proper sanitation and hygiene facilities. Foot baths in all entrances. Toilet with adequate water and soap. Hand washing stations. Measure number 26, sufficiently provide the following: tissue, paper towels, trash bins, adequate water and soap, and sanitizers, and others. Measure number 27, display and distribute IEC materials on health. Measure number 28, create and operate a common area for accommodating visitors and clients, as well as designated areas for high-risk groups with appropriate prevention measures. Measure number 29, ensure setup of materials recovery facilities. What is materials recovery facilities? This is basically solid waste management in the SBM wings, where we uh, where we place our garbage. So those that can be recycled, those garbage should be classified as recyclable, non-recyclable, and organic. Perhaps you could also add biohazard wastes that require disinfection before disposal. Measure number 30, this is where the ICT, information and communication technology, ensure the availability of that infrastructure and facilities to facilitate online and non-face-to-face means of communication. Measures number 31, 32, and 33, establishment of school or office clinic for basic services. What are the basic services? Health assessment and physical examination as needed. It is required. Appropriate intervention, first aid, or treatment. We cannot do the following if we do not have medicines. That's why we have to request. We have to request for medicines. And we have to stock up on medicines. Wala kaya bulong. Ano kita kung may pasyente kag wala bulong. We have to buy these medicines. We have to stock. We have to stock up. Proper management of symptoms, including recommendations to take necessary rest at home. Okay, it is a known fact that DepEd employees are heroes. Even if they're sick, they will still report to work. Even if they're dying, they will still report to work. The only problem is that when you report to work that you have COVID, you will spread the infection to others. So it's not heroic, but it's not heroic, but it's a dangerous act. So if you are sick, stay at home. If you get sick in the office, go home. Okay? Access to existing telemedicine platforms. It is encouraged that consultations should be online. There's only one medical officer in the Division of Negros Occidental. If I contract the virus and I get sick, we have 40 nurses. They're well trained, but they would still refer. Maybe if maybe if I get sick, they can still they can still call me. If I do not answer, maybe I'm already dead. Right? So we have to provide telemedicine platforms. So online consultations must be encouraged. Okay? Also, we have to set up private screening area near the entrance of the division office, district office, and the schools, and a separate space for sick patients awaiting referral or transfer or waiting to be sent home. So we have to set up 3 areas for health: school clinic, a private screening area, and a separate space. Measure number 34, provision of mental health and psychosocial support. Validating and normalizing feelings, calming down and controlling one's emotions, linking, identifying, and addressing needs, sources of strength, managing physical reactions, emotions, seeking solutions and social support, focusing on positive activities and relevant topics as needed. So these are measures set up by different mental health associations to provide mental health and psychosocial support. But for basic needs, basically you just have someone to talk to. If you have problems, you do not keep it to yourselves, because times of pandemic, suicide rates are suicide rates are rising. Also, there is a stigma that if you have COVID-19, that you're a dangerous individual, that you will have the ability to infect others. So other people, they create situations wherein it's very dangerous for someone who is sick. We need to have more empathy. We need to have we need to we need to be more understanding about others, especially especially for those who are very strict in attendance, in in they always cite the civil service law, but we have measures for that. We have it is causing undue stress to other employees, especially those who are afraid to go out or think it's very dangerous. We are bombarded daily with information coming from reliable and less than reliable sources. And with the proliferation of fake news, those news that incite panic, those uh, uh, those negative news that we receive online or through other media platforms, it causes undue stress. So we have to be more understanding. So that's why we have rights-based approach because an individual has rights. And if that individual thinks that it's dangerous for him to go out and report for duty, we have to be understanding and not be very judgmental. Measure number 34 for schools, we have to give an orientation in the first 5 days of the school where learners are physically present in school and shall be devoted to discussion, facilitation of modules related to mental health and psychosocial support. The classroom advisors must undergo training. For officers, practical tips based on the mental health and psychosocial support topics should be communicated through available platforms to personnel who have worked from home or stayed in quarantine prior to returning to work. Also, psychological first aid will be provided by trained personnel. Measure number 34. The DepEd Task Force for COVID-19, in collaboration with the Bureau of with the different departments of the central office, shall issue guidelines on the mental health program and psychological support system for learners and personnel across all governance levels in DepEd. Measure number 35. Number 35, engage learners in at least 60 minutes of daily physical activities. Encourage adults to engage in at least 30 minutes of daily physical activities. This is based on the 2010 Physical Activity Prescription, Philippine National Guidelines on Physical Activity. Measure number 36 and 37, physical examination for personnel. As per RA 11223 or the Universal Healthcare Act and its implementing rules and regulations. So, physical examination or medical examination should be implemented because this is a time of pandemic. We have to ensure that the workforce and the learners are fit or ready to combat COVID even at their homes. And especially most especially when they are already reporting in the schools because this is the main responsibility of the school health and nutrition unit. Okay? So physical examination is still important. Although that some teachers, we have encountered certain problems with teaching and teaching personnel in our collection of the medical form 86. Some of them will not subject themselves to laboratory examinations because it is dangerous. We understand that we are not requiring you to have your laboratories taken. We are not forcing you to have your laboratories taken, but instead, what we are asking is that you're going to fill up the medical history forms. We can review your medical history. Also, you can attach old or old or most recent laboratories. If your most recent laboratories is 6 months ago, it's okay. We are not forcing you to go to the laboratory and have your specimens taken. We will be satisfied with the with your most recent. But if you get the courage to go out and get your laboratories and not make it a reason that you're just scared, we encourage that you have your most recent labs taken, but we are not forcing you. and also guidelines for the delivery of learner support services, specialized services in health and nutrition service. In the context of COVID-19, this is still subject for an issuance of a directive from the central office. But basically, what is stated is basic nutrition, medical, and nursing services will be provided. So our work will not, the work of the SHMU will not stop. In fact, we are needed more than ever. When they start, when the implementation of this of the face-to-face classes will begin, the work of the nurse, the DepEd nurse, is of paramount importance. So we have to empower our nurses by providing them with adequate equipment and training so that they can do their job well. Measures number 38 and 39 provide alternative arrangements to members of the most at-risk population. So who are most at risk? Those who are 60 years old and above, those who are pregnant, and those who have pre-existing medical conditions. We have to provide alternative arrangements and also explore partnerships to provide assistance to members of vulnerable groups. Who are vulnerable groups? The most vulnerable are obviously the learners. We have indigenous people. So we have to provide transportation, provision of PPEs, and if needed, social amelioration. Measures number 40, 41, and 42 provide appropriate compensation and benefits to those involved in COVID-19 response, if applicable, subject to the availability of funds. That's why we have to budget hazard pay for our health personnel and for also for personnel who are reporting daily at the division office. Provide necessary assistance to personnel required to physically report to work, those who are essential workers, and those that cannot stay at home despite the dangers. We have to provide them with accommodations, travel passes, communication allowance, transportation, vitamins to boost their immune system if necessary and practicable. Also provide logistical support for personnel on work at home. Ensure the availability of emergency health kits and PPEs. So we have several activities that require a certain personal protective equipment. For triage and screening of individuals, usually done by the security guard and the nurse, we have to provide them with a medical mask, surgical mask. If we are caring for suspected cases of COVID-19 with no aerosol generating procedure, we have no respiratory symptoms. For personnel in school clinics, we have to provide our school clinic teachers with medical masks, goggles, face shields, gloves, and gowns. For those who are caring for suspected or confirmed cases of COVID-19 who are coughing, who have respiratory symptoms, aerosol generating procedure, we have to provide them with goggles, face shields, respirators, N95 FFP2, FFP2 mask, gloves, and gowns. So we have here technical specifications. It is already mentioned in the DepEd memo. We have to take note of this. When we purchase medicine, when we purchase PPEs, we have to um, tell the suppliers about the technical specifications. With the proliferation of fake masks, fake N95 respirator masks, and those unscrupulous individuals whose objective is to make a profit in an illegal way, we have to examine that these masks are genuine because these items are protective. It is a crime to give defective or substandard equipment to our nurses and school clinic teachers. It's like sending them to combat without guns or with toy guns. So we have to ensure that what we purchase are genuine articles. Measure number 44, observe the proper protocol on screening and returning personnel. This is where we get most of our frequently asked questions. All returning learners and personnel physically reporting to the school shall be screened for symptoms of COVID-19. Shall be screened. So we have to train our security guards, we have to train our school clinic teachers to screen for symptoms, not just temperature scanning. We have to screen for fever, coughs, colds, and other respiratory symptoms. Also ask for relevant history of travel or exposure within the last 14 days. The following should have happened 2 days before or within 14 days from the onset of symptoms of a confirmed or probable case. There should have been a face-to-face contact with a confirmed or probable case within 1 meter for more than 15 minutes with or without face mask. Now, we have risks. If the person was wearing a if two persons who have face-to-face contact are wearing a face mask, it is considered low risk. If one person was wearing a face mask and the other was not wearing a face mask, it is moderate risk. But if both persons were not wearing a face mask, had a conversation of more than 15 minutes at a distance of 1 meter, it is considered high risk. But all of these are still considered close contacts. The stratification of risk is for the patient. It is for the physician or the nurse to say, it's okay, you wore a face mask, you are a close contact, but you are low risk. It's okay, you are a close contact, but you wore a mask and the other did not wear a mask, you are considered moderate risk. If you are okay, if you, both of you did not wear a face mask, but sorry, but you are high risk. This is where the art and science of medicine and nursing comes into play. We, as nurses and health personnel, we are trained to empathize. We have been drilled a long time ago in medical and nursing school about the proper way of dealing with patients. We cannot just tell them, oh, you're a close contact, you need to go home without offering any form of reassurance. That's why the job of a nurse and the medical officer is different. We have to be more understanding that due to our training, we are a little bit tentative when we make decisions because our job involves lives. You have to understand that. Also, direct physical contact with a confirmed case. So regardless of the time spent, if you touch an infected person or a confirmed case, you are already considered a close contact. Or if you're a caregiver, if you provided direct care for a patient with a probable or confirmed case of COVID-19 disease without using proper PPE, then you are considered a close contact. Okay. Measure number 44. Okay. Symptoms. Symptomatic and asymptomatic. So okay, you have to first to ask relevant history of travel or exposure. So if the person has relevant history of travel or exposure and is symptomatic, he or she has fever, cough, or respiratory symptoms, they are not allowed to physically report and must consult with a care provider. Use of online telemedicine is encouraged and should be issued a certificate of quarantine completion required prior to physically reporting to the school. So you are not allowed to physically report. If you have had relevant history of travel or exposure, but you are asymptomatic within the last 14 days, you are allowed to physically report upon presentation of a medical certificate. Okay? If you have relevant, if you are, if you have, did not have relevant history of travel or exposure, but you are symptomatic, it could be a case of local transmission. So you have to seek medical advice for proper treatment, intervention, and the issuance of the necessary medical certificate prior to physically reporting. But if you have neither, you have no history of travel or exposure, and you are asymptomatic within the last 14 days, you are allowed to physically report to the school. Okay. Measure number 45. Observe the DepEd testing protocol. Applying DOHDM number 2020-0180, other relevant DOH guidelines and relevant WHO guidelines in the context of the DepEd family, the department shall assist in facilitating the testing of the following: learners, teachers, and personnel who develop symptoms during the period when face-to-face classes are already being held, or when teachers and personnel are already reporting physically in the school or the workplace. Those who have history of travel to a place, local or foreign, assessed as having community transmission of COVID-19 in the last 14 days prior to the onset of symptoms, or have a history of contact with a confirmed or probable COVID-19 case within the last 14 days prior to the onset of symptoms. All symptomatic assigned healthcare workers and first responders in the field. So, if you define this, I would interpret it as such: all school health and education personnel who are healthcare workers and probably DRRM personnel, the engineering department who are doing their monitoring, if they become asymptomatic, they should be tested first. That is my interpretation, but it's still subject for approval with our higher authorities. So measure number 45. The last measure: learners and teachers and personnel covered by the previous slide, while no face-to-face classes are being held, or while on pure work from home arrangement, or shall be referred to a health facility for evaluation and medical intervention, including testing. Similarly, patients who exhibit uh, influenza-like illnesses or severe acute respiratory illness, as defined by DOH, shall be referred to a health facility for evaluation and medical intervention, including testing. I think this is where the PASS system, preventive alert system for schools, come into play. We'll be explaining in detail in the next by the next reporter. Upon detection and prior to testing or referral to a facility, identified learners, teachers, and personnel who fall under the above categories shall be isolated at home or in a DepEd facility. If no referral happens, the patients will still remain in isolation for 14 days or until asymptomatic, whichever is longer. This last slide, directions for SDOs and schools and CLCs. Cooperate with DepEd in carrying out provisions set forth in the standards. Report any COVID-19 related concerns to the DepEd Task Force COVID-19 for Central Office concerns, or to their respective COVID-19 DRRM teams for regional division or school level concerns. Comply with standards in health and work safety issued by the department and participate in related programs, initiatives, and activities. Responsibly use and manage all safety, hygiene, and sanitary resources provided by the agency. Contextualize and adapt implementation processes and procedures according to sociocultural realities and context of learners and their communities, and support government initiatives for responding to COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, thank you. We still have frequently asked questions. This task was given to me by Ma'am Rebony Bertorio. I would try to answer to the best I can. Frequently asked questions. What is usually asked when we conduct seminars, especially for COVID. So the first frequently asked question is, are we allowed to conduct face-to-face classes? The answer is a definite No. Until there is a cure and a vaccine, the DOH and IATF recommends no face-to-face classes. So DepEd adopts the required health standards to be followed in all basic education schools, community learning centers, DepEd offices. When and to the extent that teachers, non-teaching personnel, and learners will be allowed to physically return to DepEd schools and offices by the DOH, the IATF, and the LGU. Are we allowed to physically report, receive visitors in schools and offices? For unhampered operations, we are allowed, but we must limit. We have to provide standard work arrangements. And as stated in the DepEd order, entrance of visitors are highly discouraged. And alternative means of communication, online platforms for transactions should be encouraged. We have to limit large gatherings, limit travel only to the most essential, provide alternative work arrangements for those in high risk, 60 years old and above, those with medical conditions, those who are pregnant. We have to give them work from home arrangement. And when we are reporting physically, we have to enforce strict social distancing. Okay, what must the school or office prepare for if and when to the extent the face-to-face classes transactions are allowed? First, we have to post infographics and signages in front of our schools. We have to post a big sign that says no face mask, no entry. And we have to post stop. Do not enter if you have fever and respiratory symptoms. So those who have symptoms of COVID-19 should be barred from entry in the first place. Sa gate pa lang, untapo na sila. So, but for those who will go inside, we have to provide foot baths at the entrances, hand washing facilities, and in all areas with adequate soap and water supplies. Also provide toothbrush and toothpaste to kinder up to grade 6, and a bar of soap for all learners kinder to grade 6. So also we have to provide face masks, preferably surgical medical masks for symptomatic learners, teaching and non-teaching personnel, visitors who are symptomatic. Also, to DRRM, visiting DRRM and school health education personnel. It is the responsibility of the school to provide face masks. Okay. The schools must also select and prepare areas. One is a temperature check area. It is located at the entrance. It should be manned by security guard, security personnel who will be trained to operate the thermal scanner and trained to spot symptoms like coughing and sneezing. It also must be trained to ask for relevant history and travel. The school must select and prepare areas, such as a private screening area, to be set up near the entrance of the school. This is not the clinic where the school clinic teacher or SHNU personnel who happen to be inside the school must give a face mask to the symptomatic learner or visitor, give treatment or referral to the DOH. So if you detect a symptomatic person at the entrance, you do not bring them to the clinic, but you bring them to a private screening area near the entrance of the school. So the school head must prepare this area. Also, waiting area near the entrance. The private screening area is not the waiting area. You have to prepare another area near the entrance as designated as a waiting area. It should be private. There should be privacy because the patient who is supposed to wait there for transport or for referral or to be sent home usually are subject to stigma. So we have to set up a private waiting area near the entrance for facilitating transport and referral. We need to refurbish the school clinic. It should be stocked with surgical face masks, face shields, PPEs, basic medicines, and dressing materials. So for the activities inside the school clinic, health assessment of teaching and non-teaching personnel, assessment of symptomatic learners, provision of basic health services, facilitation of referral. So this is the flow, entrance, temperature check. If the patient is symptomatic, they should be provided with a surgical face mask. They should be brought to a private screening area where they will be given intervention, management, or treatment. So this private screening area must also be stocked with medicines. And the one who will give the intervention management or facilitate the referral should be the school clinic teacher or school health and nutrition personnel who happen to be inside the school. And after that, the patient will be brought to a private waiting area while awaiting transport for referral or waiting um, for their for the one who will fetch them. So if the symptomatic individual was asymptomatic at the time of screening at the entrance and was allowed to go in the classroom, but during the course of the day, they develop symptoms and they're already in the classroom, they should be brought to the school clinic and should be given a surgical face mask, given appropriate assessment, intervention, management, treatment, and referral, and they will be brought to the private waiting area for facilitation of transport or wait for the one who will fetch them. Okay, what to do if a learner or personnel manifests COVID-19 symptoms? Ensure that these learners, personnel will not physically report to the school or office. If they are already in the school or the office, they should be assessed and sent home immediately. Places that they have been must be identified and sanitized. All contacts traced and recommended 14-day quarantine. What to do if a learner personnel tested positive for COVID-19? Okay, ensure that this learner personnel must not return to school even if they are already asymptomatic unless cleared by medical authorities. So what do we mean by clearance? They should have a negative RT-PCR result. So there are two kinds of tests. This was already mentioned by Ma'am Shane, Chokson, the RT-PCR or the reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction, or the real-time polymerase chain reaction. It is the confirmatory test. It is done with a swab test. There is also the rapid antibody testing. It is less reliable, but it is FDA approved. So it is taken with a blood sample. So there are two kinds of tests. These are not the same. So the clearance should be RT-PCR, not rapid antibody testing. Okay, will all learners and personnel be screened? Yes, all learners and personnel prior to entering the school should be screened for fever, coughs, colds, and respiratory symptoms. Yes, they should be asked for history of relevant travel or exposure within the last 14 days. Yes, they should be asked for history of face-to-face contact with a confirmed or probable case at a distance of 1 meter or less for 15 minutes or more with or without face mask. Yes, you should be asked if they have direct physical contact with a confirmed case, regardless of the time, even if it's just 1 minute or 30 seconds or 5 seconds. But that person, but they physically touch a confirmed case, they should consider the close contact. Yes, they should be asked if they have direct care, if they provided direct care, if they are a health personnel or a caregiver with a probable or confirmed case without the use of PPE. So the definition of this is the definition of close contact. This event should have happened 2 days before and 14 days after. Okay? So we have several classifications. You are considered suspect if you are symptomatic. If you are a symptomatic individual, you have fever, you have cough and cold, but was not subjected to testing. You're considered probable if you are symptomatic or asymptomatic with testing, but still awaiting the results. You are confirmed if you are a symptomatic or asymptomatic individual with a confirmed positive test result. Right? So the definition of close contact must be clearly defined. Close contact, suspect, probable, and confirmed. Okay, what to do if a learner or personnel is symptomatic? Stop them from entering the school. How do you do that? Put up signages at the school entrance telling people that if they are asymptomatic, they should not enter the school. What are the symptoms? Fever, coughs, colds, and respiratory symptoms. What to do at the entrance? For the security guards, we should emphasize that they should do temperature checks using a thermal scanner, and those with 37.5 degrees Celsius should be given a face mask. Ask if there is fever, coughs, colds, respiratory symptoms, relevant history of travel, or post-contact. We also have to record the name and contact number in the logbook. If they answered yes to the above, they have fever, coughs, colds, they should be brought to the private screening area, not the clinic. And the security guard shall call for the clinic teacher so that the clinic teacher will assess, treat, or refer the symptomatic. What to do? If the symptomatic, if they are already inside the school and they become symptomatic during the course of the day, they should be brought to the clinic where the school clinic teacher will assess them, treat them, or refer them, and they should be brought to the waiting area. What to do if the returning learner or personnel is asymptomatic but with relevant history of travel or exposure? They are not allowed to report to school unless they present a medical certificate. What to do if the returning learner or personnel is symptomatic with relevant history of travel or exposure? They should not be allowed, and the medical certificate, preferably with the RT-PCR result, should be required. What to do if returning learner or personnel is asymptomatic within the last 14 days without relevant history of travel or exposure? They should be allowed. Okay? So, asymptomatic, wala nakatravel sa Gwa, wala nakatravel outside sa locality, pwede ka sunod. Wala na medical certificate na kinailangan. Okay. What to do if the returning learner or personnel is symptomatic within the last 14 days, but with relevant history of travel or exposure? Not allowed, but they can be cleared by the local health authorities. And a medical certificate is required. Okay? Returning learner or personnel symptomatic within the last 14 days, but without relevant history of travel or exposure. This could be a case of local transmission. It is not allowed. And the medical history certificate must be required. Okay, why 14 days? Not 7 days, not less than 14 days, because the incubation period of COVID-19 is 14 to 21 days. From the moment you are exposed, you are infected, the development of symptoms could take as long as 14 to 21 days. So you have no symptoms, but you are considered a carrier. And most COVID positive patients are asymptomatic carriers. They spread the virus silently. That's why quarantine is important and should be not be less than 14 days. Also, early detection and isolation of individuals is of paramount importance. That's why we have to train our security guards, we have to train our clinic teachers, and we have to train and retrain our school health and nutrition personnel on proper detection protocols. Will training be provided to security guards, clinic teachers? Yes, Clinic teachers, security guards will be trained and oriented by the school dietitian. We are in the process of developing a manual for nurses and clinic teachers, which includes simplified guide for screening, basic treatment interventions, first aid, also a referral process. We also had our workplace safety protocols and school safety protocols. Okay. Budget. Where will we get the budget? According to the DepEd order, it should be charged to available funds in the CO, RO, SDO, schools and community learning centers under the General Appropriations Act or other sources of funds, preferably partnerships with LGU, private sectors, NGOs. Also, there should be a prioritization of needs. It is not just that we have to purchase the most essential equipment and supplies. So, in my opinion, this could be interpreted why should we buy a full PPE when we are not taking care of patients for more than 8 hours in an ICU setting or a COVID ward setting? I think I think face masks and surgical masks or N95 respirator masks are adequate. Also, sanitation and disinfection equipment. We have to specify what equipment are we going to use because PPEs are expensive and are badly needed in hospitals. I don't think they are needed in DepEd school clinics. And as such, utilization of such funds are subject to bidding, procurement, accounting, and auditing rules and regulations to ensure that it's not going to be subject to corruption. Okay. For further questions, for those of you who will view these slides, further questions, please contact the nurses. Send them your questions. We will collect and consolidate your questions and answer them. We will collect all these questions and the answers and we will publish an advisory. Okay, with that, I end my report today. Thank you very much for your time and keep safe, everyone.
That would be the end of our webinar session for today. Thank you very much, Districts of Kawayan 1, Kawayan 2, and Hinubaan. We would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Shea Marie Tiocson, Nurse 2, and Dr. Jose Maria C. Villarosa, the 3rd Medical Officer 3. If you want to review our webinar session, we will upload the PowerPoint presentations. Post tests will be uploaded on the group page. Thank you once again and have a healthy and productive day. God bless.